Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for filling out the poll. It's good to know we've got a little bit of every community group here tonight. And let's see. Cool. Let's see who's here. Mostly parents, community members, some teachers, some administrators. Well, welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for being here. We got over 150 RSVPs from everyone in the community, so I'm really appreciative that you guys were able to join tonight and for taking time out of your night. Just ending the poll here. So yeah, my name is Giovanna Soto, and I'm a community manager with the SF Parent Coalition. And the SF Parent Coalition started in the summer of 2020 in the response to the pandemic and school closures, and we worked with families across the city to reopen our schools. And now, after school closures, we envision a future where San Francisco is one of the best places in the country for children and youth of all races, socioeconomic backgrounds, and abilities to grow up and get an excellent public education. Now, moving on to our community norms. Let's see here, community norms. Yes. Okay. We stay curious and respectful about different perspectives. We know tonight is a webinar, but we hope that anytime you're talking with people in the SF parent space or in general, you let people share their minds. And of course, we always center the voices, assets, needs, and aspirations of our students and families. Okay, moving on to the agenda and overview. So first, we'll hear a little bit about why we're here, what the SFUSD literacy changes mean, as well as some of the key terms. I know that in this space, people use a lot of jargon, so we would like to define some things to make this conversation understandable for everyone. And then, of course, the reason why we're all here, our conversation with Kareem Weaver, and then we'll have a portion of the event dedicated to Q&A. And yes, you guys can see, you can drop your questions in the Q&A section. The chat is disabled, but you can send your questions to us and we will ask all of them at that time. Great. So now moving on to introductions of our speakers and guests. Of course, we're joined here tonight by Kareem Weaver. He is an educator and a national literacy activist, as well as the executive director and co-founder of Fulcrum. And he is also a parent, award-winning teacher, and administrator, and the Oakland NAACP vice president and chair of his education committee. Kareem's advocacy is featured in the film The Right to Read. He also co-founded and runs Fulcrum, an organization which partners with stakeholders to improve reading results for students. We're thrilled to have Kareem here to share his wisdom and insights with San Francisco tonight. And he will be joined by Jenny Harriet Hatfield. Jenny is the chair of the SF Parent Coalition Board. She has worked in education for nearly 2 decades in a variety of roles, including teaching elementary school in LA and Oakland, education policy research, and philanthropy. She has 3 kids, including an SFUSD first grader and 2 future SFUSD students. We appreciate Jenny for facilitating this informative conversation with Kareem Weaver tonight. And let's welcome them both to the screen.
First of all, Jenny, I'm gonna need to see some ID. I can't believe you've been at it for 2 decades. I'm not buying that. 2 decades? Come on, man. I don't see.
It's true.
I'm not buying it. Buying it.
It's true.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Before we dive in, I'm going to spend a little bit of time providing some context about what's happening with literacy in SFUSD and why we're here tonight, and then we will start our conversation with Kareem. So first of all, why we're here. SFUSD is implementing curriculum with the goal of improving reading and writing instruction, and therefore improving achievement, especially for focal students who have historically been underserved in our district. The curricula that have been selected are the creative curriculum for pre-K and TK, into reading for K through 5th, both English language arts and Spanish language arts, and L education in grades 6 through 8. One thing to note is that the district is only adopting new curriculum for English language arts in pre-K through 8 and for Spanish language arts in K through 5, but not for any of the other language pathways that we have in the district. As Giovanna mentioned, we use a lot of jargon in education, as in other fields. So we're going to do our best tonight to define key terms, but if there's a term that we're using that's unfamiliar to you, please drop it in the chat and we'll do our best to define it during the course of the evening. So one term that I mentioned on the previous slide, language arts, the subject, refers to reading and writing. The term curriculum is thrown around a lot, and that refers to the materials teachers use in daily instruction. So that can include lesson plans, it can include books that teachers and students read, and it can include assessments. Next slide, please. So this process has been underway for some time now. It's been about 2.5 years in the making. So it started with this audit listed on this slide here. The district enlisted an education consulting firm to audit language arts curriculum and instruction, which means that the consultants reviewed curriculum and they observed classroom instruction to see if it was aligned to research-based best practices. And they found that in some cases it was, but in many instances it wasn't. So they moved to considering several different curricula, and district staff, teachers, parents, and community members reviewed several curriculum options in the evaluate phase. Then teachers piloted or tested out the most highly rated options. Earlier this year, the board approved the curricula listed on the previous slide. So this fall, teachers will be expected to use these materials for language arts instruction. This is a really big undertaking for any district. And so now we'll talk a little bit about why the district is taking this on. So the main reason is because reading achievement across the district is far below the potential of the students that the district serves. So a few data points here. According to recent district-wide data, only 50% of students in grades K through 3 are meeting grade level expectations. And the results, as you can see here, are even worse for focal student groups that the district has identified as being historically underserved. And then in another sign that something very much needs to change, among the 200 largest public school districts across California, SF Unified is in the bottom decile in reading achievement for low-income Black and Latinx students. Obviously, we can and we must do better. Next slide, please. So what is SFUSD doing right now in terms of curriculum? Well, over the past several years, the district's approach to reading and writing instruction has varied widely. Some schools are using research-based curriculum and some are not. And so as a result, some kids are excelling in reading and writing and some are not. So by implementing new curriculum, the district is aiming to ensure that all students get research-based reading and writing instruction. So before we start our conversation, I'm going to define a couple more terms. If you could go ahead to the next slide, please. So terms. So we've already talked a little bit about language arts and curriculum. The science of reading is a term that is often used in the popular press to describe the body of research that explains how kids learn to read and what effective reading instruction looks like. It is often not well defined, so we'll try to define it here. The research comes from a variety of fields, including cognitive science, psychology, linguistics, and education. This body of evidence has demonstrated that learning to read proficiently is a complex process. So that means students need instruction that covers many dimensions of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And this can include things that you may have heard about, like phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and developing background knowledge. Sometimes the science of reading is described as focusing solely on phonics, but that's not true. Other terms you might hear include research-based or evidence-based, which also refer to this body of reading and as well as learning research around how kids learn in general that should inform how instruction is designed. Okay, so with that context set, we're going to turn to our conversation with Kareem. Okay, so Kareem, to kick us off, can you tell us how you got involved in literacy activism and what brings you to this work?
So I was a teacher for a long time. but I always focused on literacy because I had done work in South Carolina and Georgia in the juvenile justice system. So basically youth prisons and group homes and orphanages. And I had been an administrator at a youth prison before I became a teacher. And they can't read. It's clear when you work in a juvenile justice, it's like there's no put on, there's no, highfalutin language or buzzwords, none of that. They just can't read. And so it allowed me to get real clear, real fast about what was going on. And then as a teacher, I really patterned what I was doing after others who had been successful. Historically, folks like Marva Collins, who've done it for years. And there's a movie about her. I recommend people go check it out, the Marva Collins story. But I just follow what works, and the reality was that as I started to work with the NAACP more and more, I realized this is a civil rights issue because if you can't read, you on the outside looking in a lot of different ways, a lot of different ways. So that's how I got involved. It was over time, but I started off just as a service-minded person, and I came to the conclusion that literacy was the coin of the realm.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So why is curriculum important, and how does it have the potential to address equity gaps? And, as you said, this is a civil rights issue.
So curriculum is important because it provides guardrails, guideposts. If you don't have the right curriculum, you're basically trying to make bricks without straw, metaphorically speaking. It's the material that you're using to get to the outcome. Teachers need tools. I mean, look, so I'm just going to name this. I was a teacher in Oakland for years before we had a decent curriculum, and I think it cost me a marriage. I had to do everything myself. I know people say, "Oh, I make my own curriculum." Okay, yeah. If you're serious about getting all kids to read, now I'm not talking. You can just wing it. Now, no, most teachers aren't just winging it, right? They're trying to get the kids to read. But if you're seriously trying to get, that means your dyslexic kids, your kids living in poverty, the kids who speak a second language, all that. If you're trying to get all the kids to read, it takes an enormous amount of knowledge, clarity, precision, accuracy, and intentionality to devise one lesson, let alone a series of lessons over a series of years, because things have to be vertically aligned. It's not about what you can do, it's about what the team does. And the only way you're going to get kids access consistently to complex texts, which is one of the biggest indicators of college and career readiness, things have to be vertically aligned. You need a team. That's curriculum. Curriculum, you just can't get around it. Like, I know there's some places like Chicago and others that they have created their own curriculum, and whoever creates it, but it needs to be done ahead of time, transparent, and it needs to be good. And we could talk about what good means and et cetera, but it's very, very important. If you care about your teachers and you care about your kids, you're going to get good curriculum. You're not expecting teachers, you shouldn't be expecting teachers to do it all on their own. And you shouldn't just hope that kids get what they need. It should be part of the plan to get what they need. And that's what curriculum can really help you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much resonates with my experience as a teacher as well. So you are doing this work all over the country. How does what's happening here in San Francisco relate to what you're seeing around the rest of the country?
Well, right now I'm sitting in Milwaukee. I just finished talking to some folks out here. Everybody around the country is trying to get this right, but they've been at it for a while. People may have heard about Mississippi, maybe they haven't, but that quote unquote miracle in Mississippi, that wasn't no miracle. That took 10 years to do. So, we're just starting at the gate here, in the city, but all around the country, people have been trying to figure this out. Even in Oakland, we were trying to figure this out. We've been stumbling along a little bit, but we realize that if we don't get this right, the whole thing's a fool's errand. If the kids can't read, first of all, safety is number one. You got to keep them safe. But if they can't read, not much else matters. It's the best social emotional program you can have is teaching kids how to read. So we're behind for whatever reason. Most school systems that are behind, there are reasons both economic, political, and cultural that play into that. But there's no doubt there are a lot of folks who are ahead of us, which just means we have the benefit of their hindsight. If we're willing to actually explore and learn and look at things, we can say, oh, that worked, that didn't work, they tried this. And if they're willing to be honest with us, we can actually benefit from their hindsight. But yeah, we're behind. San Francisco's behind, but so are most of the other places around the country. They're behind too, but people have made up their mind to get up and figure it out. And that's the question for SFUSD. Have we had enough? Are we ready to get up? And so, yeah, there's more to that I can share later, but yeah, others are ahead, but I don't think we should hang our heads about that. Like, it is what it is. What are we going to do now? You know, not just curriculum, but in other areas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier I shared some data from the early grades from K through 3, and a lot of attention is paid on the early grades. Why are they so important?
Well, that's like asking, you know, if we're building a house, why is the foundation important? It's not until the storm comes. When the storm comes, all of a sudden, hey, where's the foundation at? And you know what? It's the same way with literacy, and the storm is called middle school. The storm is called high school. It's called college. It's called career. It's called job opportunity and economic viability and political access. It's called security and self-determination. There's a lot of different storms and winds that are around us. You know, my daughter was 12 and she saw an article in the paper that said 75% of Black boys in California can't read. It was at the time it was Oakland Trib. It's now something else. But she started crying and asked if it was true. 75% of Black, now I mean, 12, she's probably starting to like boys and all that. And the sociological implications for literacy cannot be overstated. What does it mean for families? What does it mean for couples? Marriages? What does it mean for families? What does it mean for businesses and entrepreneurship? This isn't something that we can just put a fine pin on. This is the whole thing. We got to figure this out. And economically, politically, you name it. And it's high time. So I'm glad to hear San Francisco Unified is starting to get up, has made some decisions around literacy that are designed to support teachers and kids. It's long overdue, and I'm just glad to see it.
Yeah. In the work that you have done, what have you seen success look like, or what would success look like for curriculum implementation in terms of instruction and student outcomes changing?
I'm glad you asked. So one of the first things that we did, matter of fact, no, I have some slides. I won't show my slides yet, maybe later. But when we bring on someone at Fulcrum, the first thing I do is I give them a list of things to look at. Podcasts, articles, whatever. And podcasts around districts that turned around, articles about folks that are doing well, for all different, it could be Midwestern, Southern, West Coast, wherever. Just who's getting it right, and listening to them tell their stories about the mistakes they made, the successful things that they did. And what I tell people is like, okay, after you go through that with me for about 3 weeks, it's like you probably now know more than 95% of the folks in charge of our schools, because not very many people study success. Maybe there's a case study every now and then. I'm talking about looking under the hood and asking questions and listening to the people talk step by step how they did it. To me, that should be that should be the norm in graduate schools and in certifications, both for teachers, principals, superintendents, whomever, board members. But it's just not the case. So around the country, there are folks getting it right. There's a podcast that Ed Trust did a few years ago. It's called Extraordinary Districts, I think, or
Yes.
Ordinary Districts, Extraordinary. Oh, that's it. Okay, Extraordinary District. It's really Karen Chenoweth. It's phenomenal. They go around the country and they just look at what works. That's it. That's all they do. For like 5 seasons. I looked, it had like some of the best episodes would have like 20 views after 3 or 4 years. And I was like, why isn't anybody paying attention to what works? I don't understand that. And so we now, if it had been a football game or some Kardashians involved, millions of views, but schools working, teachers happy, kids learning and happy, families, nothing. I don't get it. So at Fulcrum, we made it a priority to go see things. We just took about 40 folks from around the country to go see one of the districts that was featured in that podcast. We recorded, if we can ever get around to editing it and publishing it. Phenomenal. And they walked us through it. It blew our minds. We had people, a board member from Oakland went, Director Lerma. We had the literacy lead out in Hayward went, Dr. Gregory. We had people from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Brooklyn, New York, and Savannah, Georgia, and St. Louis, Missouri. And people are really hungry for knowledge about what actually works. So for me, in addition to my own classroom and my own school and working in Central Law, I've seen it work. I've actually applied the things that research said worked, and wouldn't you know it, it actually works. So that's why for me, I don't do theories very well. I just don't. Our kids can't afford to be guinea pigs and theorize all day. I just look at what works and the things that I've done that have worked and that others have done or are doing that work, and we try to elevate it.
Yeah, I love that. And yes, great plug for Extraordinary Districts. It's an excellent podcast. What will it take for curriculum implementation to be successful?
Culture. It's culture. Culture beats program any day of the week. Number one is teachers. 1A is culture. This thing. So I commend SFUSD for making the pivot. So I know that curriculum pretty well. It's like any curriculum, no curriculum is perfect. Okay. But the question is, who owns this initiative? If it's the teachers, you got a chance. If it's the teachers, you got a chance because listen, all the policies and the rules, when they close that door, they're going to teach what's in their heart and mind and what they're prepared to teach. It has to be a situation where I've seen it work around the country. It's where teachers take ownership of this. Frankly, this is a teacher-led initiative around the country. The American Federation of Teachers has been saying this stuff for 30-something years. They've been the first ones. Now I know, San Francisco Teachers Union, like you guys are affiliated with all run by none. You guys have your own thing. That's San Francisco through and through. That's cool. But there have been voices that have been speaking out about this. And it's just nobody was listening. We when people talk about unions, they usually argue about charters or they bash them, whatever. There's all the politics and stuff, and I'm not here to, prop up or push down. I'm just saying, usually when people talk about unions, it's all this political stuff, and that they weren't actually listening to them and what they had to say about instruction, and what they had to say about teaching and learning, because the science isn't new. First of all, this isn't a pendulum. The science ain't new. Matter of fact, let me show you something. You mind if I show you a couple things? I think I can show you better than I can tell you, as my folks would say. Let's see here. I'll be real quick about it. So this is what we talked earlier about, what makes a difference, and right here, these are the things that make the difference. In order, the teachers are the number one variable. If your teachers aren't on board, it's not going to work. And I got news for you. You're talking about a social justice element. This is a human rights issue and a civil rights issue. The teachers are going to have to say, you know what, enough, not on our watch, not on our watch. What does the evidence say? And we're going to, put a hand in the plow and get after it. And that culture matters. And then there's other things matter too. So materials, which you asked the question about curriculum, it matters, but it's like fifth on the list. Like leadership matters, professional development matters, and then you come to materials. But I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It's hugely important. There's like 30 variables after this stuff, but these are the ones that have got to be right. The teachers have got to own this thing. If it's just coming from the superintendent, you might as well pack up and go home right now. The leadership matters. Like we need them to be on board and not get in the way and have aligned systems and all the technical things got to be right. But the teachers got to say enough. We're not going to debate, argue. We can have professional and collegial conversation and push, that's fine. But we're actually going to get on the same page about teaching and learning and follow the evidence about what works for the greatest number of kids. So that's the first thing. And really quickly, if you've been in education, this pendulum, that whole thing. But I just say, according to the American Federation of Teachers, it's not really a pendulum because we haven't done these things. When have we had high quality PD and interventions that wasn't wait to fail and all this type of stuff? When do we have a core curriculum that attended to this? We just haven't had it. It's not a pendulum. We just haven't done the thing, and we haven't been committed to it. So I go around the country and ask people, how many of these elements do you have in your program? And they say, oh, well, we have one. We think we have high quality PD, or we think we have interview. Okay, so you got 1 out of 5. No, that's not a pendulum. It was in a gutter. It was in the trash. And so we have to kind of reclaim our profession as educators and say, these elements need to be there. I won't play this now. It's 5 minutes long. It's the president of AFT, and she's basically saying, yeah, we know about the science of reading, and this is important, and we've been saying this for a while, and we're going to put money behind it, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and this is something that we've got to do. And we've been trying to do it for a long time, and finally people are starting to wake up and listen to it. I'll send people, as a matter of fact, I'll give you all the link to this. Can you see it there? tinyurl.com. If you go there, you can get this deck and all the resources that are there. Anyone can just copy that in tinyurl.com reading and SFUSD. All right, so I'll just give you that, and people can take a look. Last thing I'll show you is this. This is our #1 challenge. So this is the distribution of readers according to the research. And a lot of us, 5%, it's kind of effortless when we learn to read. But then you got another 35% that's like that. Just teach them something they learned. But the majority, at 40 to 50%, and then at 10 to 15 that are dyslexic, that's a total of what, 50 to 65%. They got to have it. They got to have the structured, systematic, direct, and they need it consistently. The challenge is that our educators are here. Oh, if I can find it. There we go. That's what the distribution of our educators. Now that's an N of over 15,000 as I've done these presentations and I have people fill out surveys. So it's difficult for educators to perceive what the kids need because our experience learning how to read was so different. We're the 5%, but that's 49%. That's almost half our educators. And so this is why curriculum matters, because if left to our own devices, our learning bias will kick in. Our default settings aren't attuned to what kids need. That's the thing. And so curriculum can help balance the scale and say, actually, I know you think this because you and your grandma did it like this, but guess what? Johnny needs it like that. And they can set it up so that we can do that consistently. At a school level, you see people who've applied these principles and they've grown tremendously. At a district level, here's the one we went to in Delaware. They were almost taken over by the state, and they're out. So it can happen at a school level, it can happen at a district level. And I love this. This is this article from the 74, all subgroups. So we don't have to exclude our second language learners or our kids living in poverty. So they were able to figure out how to do it so that all kids were able to thrive. And then at a state level, you've heard about Mississippi, but also Alabama and others. It is doable. It is very much doable. So I just wanted to leave people with that, and they can go to that link and check it out themselves. But it absolutely is within our control. But it's got to be the teachers, the educators who lead the charge. If you don't have the teachers leading the charge, it's not going to work. Period. I don't care what else you do. You've got to have the folks who, because they're the tip of the spear. They're the folks who know the kids. I mean, of course, the parents, obviously, but the teachers, this is our profession. And so the question is really, the San Francisco Unified's teachers are willing to take a step back and say, you know what, let's invest in professional learning again. Let's give this a shot collectively. And it's my hope and prayer that they lead the charge and they lead it well.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the video queued up that you mentioned.
Okay,
if you think
right.
now would be a good time to play it.
You go for it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go for it. Do you want me to play it or are you going to play it?
No, I'm not going to play it, but one of my colleagues.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Okay. Had to double check.
Practicing my wait time.
All right.
Sharing the joy of reading. When kids and families choose their own books at these events, It's one of the best endorphin rushes you could have, at least if you're a teacher. The wonder in kids' eyes, the smiles on their faces. But getting books in young people's hands, it's just a start. The ability to read is a fundamental right, and teaching children to read is the most fundamental responsibility of schooling. You know, anyone who's been here for a long time knows that the AFT has been advocating for and training educators on evidence-based approaches to reading instruction for decades. That science of reading points to a systematic approach that includes phonics instruction, along with giving students plenty of opportunities to read interesting and high-quality books, to develop their background knowledge, and to build their vocabulary. But these principles must be included in teacher prep programs, in curricula, and in high-quality professional development. So while some districts continue to ignore the science of reading or think tutoring alone will boost literacy, the good and frankly surprising news is that our country is on the cusp of the most comprehensive approach to reading ever. New research that we released this week from the Albert Schenker Institute evaluated state laws all across the country, and it shows, frankly, real consensus in this evidence-based approach. And school districts, such as New York and Detroit, are pledging to teach reading using that evidence-based approach. Now, that's all good news, but teachers need to be supported in this work. The change is not going to happen overnight. So, AFT is committed to fighting for, but also providing opportunities for teachers to learn, practice, and be mentored in evidence-based approaches. A lot of you are doing that this weekend, but we're also investing in an exciting new project called Reading Universe. Now, this is being led by one of our longtime partners, WETA, along with First Book and the Barksdale Reading Institute, whose work in Mississippi has moved fourth grade reading achievement from the bottom of the country up to the national average. Reading Universe, you're going to see all sorts of stuff about it today and tomorrow.
You know, it's interesting. She was just about to start talking about Reading Universe. That's one of the links that I put in the presentation. I think it's number 8 or whatever. Just look down the list because it's free. So they help build this platform to give on demand. You know, they got the videos for all the different things. You just click on it and it shows you a teacher doing the thing. Phenomenal. There's about 3 of them like that, 3 resources: Reading Universe, Cox Academy, and I forget the other one, but it's one of those things. So they have been on this. And so people will say, well, this is a, you know, if you just, there's some people that anything the union says, they just gonna throw rocks at it. Like, man, I don't have time for that. Like, that's your politics, like whatever. I'm here for the kids. And if it's the truth, what's more, like, come on. You gotta, like, I'm pro kid. And this is absolutely right. And they have been right. The question is, what's more important, our politics or our children? I'm kids first. I'm clear about it. So I rock with them on this. I talk with the folks over there in the Schenker Institute. I was on a Zoom call with them this morning, like just listening and learning from them, because they've been right. And those systems who I laid out earlier, the states and the districts and the schools, when they follow what they're saying, it actually works. So that's one of the reasons why I want to play that in, because this isn't some outside thing that's happening to teachers. It's where teachers are leading the way, good things can happen. But they got to be informed. They have to dig in professional development. There was someone in the chat who said they're a little skeptical about the district being able to support with PD. I get it. That's where community holds in. You got to hold them accountable. You know, we just had these funds, the ESSER funds from the feds because of COVID. Where'd that money go? Right? And I know SFUSD's got some holes that feel like $120 million budget deficit, and Like, I get it. It's going to be tough to get anything approved in the budget. That's just what it is. But the community has to be able to say, come what may, this is our priority. Keep our kids safe and teach them how to read. So I would disagree with Randy on that one thing, President Weingarten. She said reading is the number one thing. I would say safety is the number one thing. That's just me. That's just my, but reading is right there. And so it's going to be tough. And maybe sometimes you got to get outside money or resources. I don't know. But professional development is key. The question is, who's coaching the coaches and who's supporting the people who are giving the professional development? Because if they were just doing one thing last year, now they're asked to do it a different way this year. Did they get professional development? How do we? So there's a lot to be said about professional development. And that person who asked that question in the chat was absolutely right. You got to stay on. That's where advocacy comes into play. You have to push for it. And partnership helps too. Sometimes if you don't have the resources or if you don't have the coaching support, sometimes you might have to partner with another district or other outside groups to help get what you need, because our kids deserve nothing less.
Yeah. So I think you've already alluded to some of these, some of the things I'm about to ask next, but this is obviously a multi-year project. One of the slides that you showed increases in achievement, but it was over multiple years. So as we look ahead to multiple years of this work, what challenges should we expect to encounter?
All right. So the biggest challenge, and it's not looking ahead. You don't have to like this. You don't need a crystal ball. Like, it's here now. It is politics of division. To really do this, you have to coalesce around a North Star. I mean, listen, I work in the East Bay mainly, and so I love San Francisco. When I grew up coming to San Francisco every weekend, going to church in San Francisco Christian Center off Mission Boulevard, come down and enjoy this. So I love the city, always have. But I can tell you, everybody knows the city. The city. Everybody's different. The city is different. Like, we don't. We love what we love. We do what we do, and this is something that it requires unity. Unity, and that's not exactly our strength. San Francisco, like, the different ethnic groups were very diverse, linguistically, culturally, ethnically, socioeconomically, very diverse. But can we be united for this? Can district and labor partners get along for this? Can bilingual advocates and Black parents, monolingual parents, white parents, can they get along for this? Can we collectively make this our North Star? That is the biggest challenge. The number one challenge is our lack of unity around this topic. Teachers need professional development. You can't take no for it. You have to get that. Has to happen. They're teaching the kids. So what supports do they need to make that go well? And then the other thing, and this is the bigger picture, or not the bigger picture, but this is part of the big picture, is the universities. You could look at the National Council on Teacher Quality Ratings for universities around the country and see that the reading foundations, not good, especially here in the Bay Area. So we've been working with some universities at Fulcrum, and so I'm not going to call them out because I respect the fact that they're trying to get better, and some of their professors have shown up and done what we've asked them to do, and they're trying to dig into this. But man, it's tough. At some point, you have to make sure that the pre-service work matches the in-service work. In other words, teachers have to, as they're learning how to teach, pre-serving the kids, that's got to be similar to what you want them to do when they're actually on the job. You can't teach them one thing in college and then when they get to the classroom, teach them something different. People are confused. And right now, the stuff they're learning in universities doesn't necessarily line up with the science, especially some of the more popular schools around the Bay. Like, that's got to be fixed. And so you can do all this work. And after this wave of teachers goes out, you professionally develop them, you give them the support, you spend the money, all the things, get the curriculum, all that. And then when this wave rolls through, the next wave of teachers coming from universities, you're gonna have the same challenge because they would have been taught in that old way. And that takes public pressure because these universities are an island unto themselves. They don't have to, they're accountable to no one. No one. especially the private schools, I'd say, more so than anyone else. No one. They got their endowment. You know, they're worried about their brand, their endowment, and the hireability of the people they graduate. That's just about it. And so, okay, game on. We need X, Y, and Z from you. Otherwise, we're not hiring your people. Hello? Public, we need your teachers, the folks that you support and train. We need them to understand the science of reading. We can't have them queuing. So here's where the rubber meets the road. 70 to 80% of classrooms around the country, K-5, do leveled reading. It's where you put kids in levels and you say, Johnny, you're a B or an H or an L, and you go get the books from that. They're learning that in university, right? There's no evidence that it works. In fact, when my parents were kids, they called that tracking. That's what they called it, tracking. Leveled sounds so much nicer and kinder and politically correct. It's the same doggone thing, but we learn that in university, and we drag it into the K-12 system, and our kids really don't have access to grade level content or grade level text. It's a problem. So big picture, universities and the stuff they're learning there, not all, but some of that stuff is just, it's just, if you want your district to be high performing, you got to tighten that up. And that's going to come from HR, from superintendent, from the board, but also from the community saying we demand that you align to the science and the research consensus.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have maybe one or two more questions, and then we'll hand it over to Giovanna to ask some of the questions that have come through the Q&A. And we've gotten a few, but if you have any questions for Kareem, please drop them in the chat. So you already started to talk a little bit about this, but if there's anything you have to add on how parents and caregivers can support curriculum implementation, how we can, hold the district to doing what they say they're going to do.
All right, so this is one subject that you got to go straight at. So the curriculum that was chosen by SFUSD, it's all right. It's way better than what y'all had before. Way better, but it's not perfect. And the biggest reason it's not perfect is because you guys have paltry prep time. It's pitiful. It's terrible. Your teachers don't have enough time to plan. Now, they can plan a little bit here and there, but you got like 150 minutes. I saw the contract link. 150 minutes? You're talking about going after kids who speak different languages, who got all these risk factors. That takes planning. Planning. Just I'm not talking about grade level meetings and PD at the district office and the principal. No, I'm talking about you and your stuff, and you sit there and you figure it out. And you figure it out. What am I supposed to do? How do I get Hakeem or Maylin or Javier? How do I get them where they need to go? I got to look at data. I got to analyze things. That takes planning. It takes preparation. And SFUSD, so the next time you all have contract negotiations, don't let me be the one negotiating. Listen, you got to make sure that the teachers have time to plan. I know it's expensive to live in the city. There's other things on the table, I'm sure. Like that's between the district and the labor partners. All I'm saying is, as a community, you have the right to say, we demand that the structure matches our goals. Our goal is that all kids learn to read proficiently by 3rd grade, 5th grade, 10th grade before they get a degree at some point. So to make that happen, we have to have the materials right, and we have to have the people able to implement them and prepare to implement them consistently. Consistently. That means the plan cannot be, it cannot be that the plan in San Francisco, Progressive Bastion, is to have teachers go home on their free time and pray that they figure it out on their own and donate their time consistently across the district. If that's the plan, we need to just hang it up. And now some teachers do that. Fine, good on them. But as a principal, I made it my business to make sure that my teachers didn't have to do that. We did extended contracts, we did different things, but those were all workarounds to the fact that the structure wasn't right. That Oakland at the time had 100 minutes to prepare a week. So that means they have no business picking a curriculum that takes 3, 4, 5 hours a week to prepare for. None. And that's just reading. We haven't even got to science and math and all, I'm just talking about reading. Like, let's say you give it all to reading. So community, you got to step up. How much? Chicago gets 300 minutes a week to plan. They're elementary teachers, right? Are their children more valuable than your children? Or do their children deserve more prepared teachers than your children? Why? Because they're Midwestern? Why? Why? And they would probably tell you they need more to get the kids you're talking about. 150 minutes a week is, you can't talk equity and then structurally promote injustice. The two don't go together. That dog won't hunt. So community has got to be, like, I understand all the virtue signaling and we can talk about the politics and the this and that and whose name is on the building. Listen, you better step in and make sure that the structures in this school system match the goals that you want. Are they keeping the kids safe? And are they putting the teachers and the kids in a position where they can actually do reading right? That's your job. And write that board member. If you want my vote, you're gonna have to get some planning time in here. If you want my vote, you're gonna have to get some professional development in here. Figure out the budget. Go find some soft money from a foundation or something to go. I don't know, whatever. Y'all go figure it out. But we gotta have safety and we gotta have reading. Everything else y'all can argue about, talk about, whatever. But we gotta have those two. We just have to. Our community depends on it.
Thank you. I love the structure has to match the goals. It's a good.
It has to. Our audio has to match our video. If it doesn't, you ever see those old kung fu movies where sometimes they're fighting and everything and the voice is different because they're translating it? I don't know, if you may be too young. Although 20 years, 2 decades, maybe. Maybe. But y'all, those out there know, those old movies, Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee, where they're talking in English, but you see the lips moving in a different language and it just doesn't add up. That's what it's like in school systems when they talk equity, but structure doesn't match. Where's the professional development? Is the curriculum, are we able to, do we have time for full implementation to prepare? Right? That's the dissonance between talking it and actually doing it. And at that point, when you have those systems in place, hey, now we can do something. Now as a teacher, it's not just, you're not just saying, listen, will you please donate your time for this effort because your heart's in the right place? Man, our heart's in the right place, but they're also human. They have a right to live. The plan can't be to grind your educators in the dust until things get better. That can't be the strategy. So we have to make sure the systems are right. The curriculum, like I say, it's a lot better than what you had before because it does have some science reading elements in there, and teachers can breathe into that and make it work. Yes, it's not my favorite, but you can make it work if you have the time to plan. But if you don't have the time to plan, man, no curriculum is really going to work. And then you have people say, oh, well, here's the pendulum again. It's swinging this way and that way. No. It's not a pendulum. It's we didn't have time for full implementation and to make adjustments and to use our professional expertise. So don't worry about, oh, is it scripted or not? Listen, take a script and then breathe into it and make it live. But you got a first-year teacher that needs a script. But if I'm 10 years into the game, that script is just a guidepost. I can use my professional judgment and expertise. So don't worry about that type of stuff. You need good materials. You need time to plan for them so we can reach all kids.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, well, now we're going to turn to some audience Q&A. So I'm going to hand it over to Giovanna, who has been looking through some of the questions that folks have asked.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Kareem, for that conversation. So yeah, just looking at all of the questions that we've received here, and Jenny or Kareem, feel free to answer whatever makes more sense. But I guess our first question here is, how can preschool teachers support the children in the pre-literacy spectrum to be ready for the elementary school reading?
In the past, there were no universal indicators of kindergarten readiness. That's no longer the case. We have indicators now. They need to first be able to identify what sounds kids are hearing. So when we talk about dyslexia and other learning differences, usually it's how you're hearing things. That's the first indicator that something may be a little bit different. But preschool can have some of those skills done in the beginning, and they can also look to see if kids are processing information, including sound, the way they need to be able to advance in going forward. So it's critical. And I would also say, you know, California has a new credential where they're working on a new credential where pre-K teachers are going to be able to, it's going to be pre-K to third grade. So you know, guess what, pre-K folks, it's coming to you too. We need you. We don't have enough teachers, so we're looking at the pre-K folks like, hey, you're doing great work there. Maybe you may want to come help us over here too. But yeah, pre-K is the beginning. That's the part of the foundation that we have to build.
Great, thank you. And then another question here is this attendee is curious about how teachers can be equipped with the updated skills and knowledge needed to support children's learning, especially in literacy. I think you touched on this a little bit already, but just like diving deeper into what that might look like for a teacher.
Yeah, so there's a few things. And you can put them in the chat to help people out. They take that link that I gave. Maybe you could post it so they could see it or something, and just go to the resources page and click Reading Universe, Cox Campus. Those are free, by the way, free, on demand and free. And just dive in. This is a season of learning. And for school administrators, this is where we need instructional leadership, not just managerial expertise. We need instructional leadership. Nothing wrong with good managerial expertise, but we need instruction as well. But educators right now, this is a season of growth and learning for many of us. And actually, it's an ongoing learning profession, so you're never done learning. I just say the teachers need support. There's professional development that could be offered. There's some states that the whole state gets trained with science of reading training, like Letters or some big. Letters is a professional development suite. The whole state does it. That's not where California is. California, you can't tell California to do too much anything, and so people are kind of on their own. Ideally, the state would handle it. They would offer you, you know, opportunities to get professional development. And secondarily, it would be the district that say, hey, we're going to spend our money like this and make sure people have access. So we're going to give you a stipend for your time, and we're going to pay for your registration for one of these three aligned professional development opportunities. One that's really heavy, one that's in the middle, and one that's kind of light. So you can do it, you know, people have different pathways to enter. And if that doesn't work, that's where community can step up too. You know, I know at Fulcrum, we've sent many teachers through professional development, through AIM pathways, through core, through different things. We paid for it, and we didn't even have that much money. But if the teachers want to get trained and supported, like, what else are we doing? You know, so there are resources out there, but it should be the state. Secondly, it should be the district. You should be at the board member saying, hey, how much money are we allocating for professional development for teachers that's aligned to the science of reading? We demand it. You're a voter. You're a taxpayer. Demand it. This is a democratic institution. It should be. Demand it. If safety and reading, demand those things.
For sure. And we try to bring parents as much as possible to Board of Education meetings to, you know, ask for these things. So I'll talk more about this later, but that's one
Yeah,
way.
yeah. Email them. Email them. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So next question is, how can PTAs and outside sources of funds, such as the Student Success Fund, dollars from the city, or even private funders, support curriculum implementation?
Curriculum implementation. So for that, you need a couple of things. So first of all, I already talked about the preparation time. And PTAs can be writing letters to the school board and say, you know, when you approve this next contract, you better make sure that you have time for planning, preparation time built out in there. So you can write that letter. It's not a pro anything. It's a pro your kids. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, it's okay to raise money. It's okay. It's okay to make sure that they're aligned offerings. You don't want to be promoting something that's different substantively than what the district is trying to do, unless the district's wrong. But if they're trying to advocate for the science reading and promoting teach, especially in a budget crisis, people need money. Schools do, the district does, and they're going to have to make a lot of deep cuts. Professional learning shouldn't be one of them. So if PTAs, I know there's a school in Oakland, Crocker Highlands. Probably shouldn't have said. It's okay. Their PTA pays for a reading specialist. They've been doing it for years. Well, everybody else has been arguing. Families got together and they said, we're just going to hire this person, and she's going to identify kids who are struggling to read, and she's going to give them support, especially if they've got dyslexia. And so the PTA is like, nah, safety first, then reading. So that's like, guerrilla politics, way of doing it, just handling it. But you should be able to lean on institution leaders to provide resources for all kids. But as a PTA of a specific school, like, social justice starts at home. Got to make sure your kids are all right. Do our teachers have the professional development they want and need? Do our kids have a safety net? Is there an intervention program that's proven to work here? Do we have a person on staff who, like, there's some things that you can just do that doesn't require a bunch of approval. You can raise money and you can just say, oh, you want to do that? And does it have evidence of success? Will help. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing.
Right. And this next question is for Jenny. So we got someone in the chat saying, I've heard that there are 2 pilot literacy curriculums that SF schools can choose from to try out this coming school year. Can you explain more about this trial and the differences between the 2 curriculums?
I'm not aware of choices for schools this fall. The choices occurred, well, it wasn't so much choice. There was a pilot that occurred last fall and the previous spring, where at least in elementary schools, they piloted 2 different curricula, and then the district chose the curricula that had received the best reviews and seemed to be improving instruction the best. So I'm not aware of any choices for K-5 English language arts or Spanish language arts, and same with the other grades that we mentioned, TK and pre-K, and then 6 through 8.
Great, thanks. So it sounds like there's only one. We're all doing with the same curriculum across the whole district. Okay.
Yeah, and I see that one of the attendees mentioned that there will be math curriculum pilots in the coming year, but English language arts pilots are done. So there will be, I'm not sure how many, I assume 2 math curricula piloted next year.
Yeah. Topic for the next call for sure. Cool. And then the next question is from an attendee is, can you explain more why tracking or levels aren't good? Is it that kids should be able to pick up a book that they like, not necessarily what they can read?
Sure. So tracking is an issue because kids have a right to have access to grade level content and grade level text. They have a right. Like I'm a 4th grader. It shouldn't be that all year long I never learn anything related to 4th grade content or subject matter. I'm supposed to learn about U.S. history in 5th grade. Doggone it, I need to learn about U.S. history in 5th grade and 8th grade and 11th grade. Like, that's just got to happen. I have a right to that. Those are the state standards. And along with that, I have a right to wrestle with, to explore, to work with text that's on my grade level. Especially since the ACT came out, and that's like the SAT and the ACT, they came out and said the main reason why kids are flunking out of college is because they can't wrestle with complex text. They can't navigate it. They're not used to it. We give them baby books, and we think that's a scaffold or a help. Look, maybe you can give them material that deepens their knowledge of something, because knowledge allows you to understand something better and access tougher material in that subject. Right? Sure. But baby books aren't a scaffold. Low-level text is not a scaffold. Just for any educators on here, just let me share that with you. So that is this misunderstanding of what a scaffold is. Scaffold will be something like, where I'm going to give you this material in advance. You're going to work in small groups, and you're going to, work with your peers on this. We're going to pre-learn certain vocabulary. There's things that you can do to provide kids access to what they need. Just giving them baby books ain't it. It's just not it. That's not what they need. When they go to take the SAT, they're not asking them baby questions. They're asking them questions at the grade level they're supposed to be at. And that's why our kids might graduate with a degree, but then get to college and flunk out, or get on a career, getting a job and can't do it because they can't read the letters. They can't understand because they never had access to grade level. So tracking is where we say, you can only do this because this is your level, and go get the blue bin. You're a rabbit or a turtle, and you call it what you want to. Kids know I have access or I don't have access. That's not right. The kids have a right to access grade level content, and it's up to us to give them the strategies and the skills they need, the scaffolds, the supports to access that material.
For sure. I think oftentimes teachers don't have high expectations for their students, which they may think helps them, but the long term just doesn't allow them to grow as much as they
Well,
possibly.
Giovanna, let me say this. That's one of the, you're talking about 70 to 85% of schools in America do this. This leveled reading is like, it's canon. This is doctrinal at this point. It's what schools, it's what educators do. The universities have trained us to do this. It is cultural. We don't even question it. Of course we were going to have level, you're a level J. There's a bin on, like, this is, and so that's why I'm saying this switch to curriculum in the science of reading and all that, it's not just technical, it's also cultural. You're asking people to step out of the things that they have been taught to do, trained to do, and that the culture approves of. It's all it for most folks, it's all they know, especially newer teachers, is all they know. And so it's not that they don't have the will, or they're dragons and want the kids not to learn. That's not it. That people think they're doing the right thing. Everything around them says they're doing the right thing, except the data, except for kids learning. And that's the data point I'm hoping people will focus on most. Something's not right. And the research is very clear. There's really no evidence that shows leveled reading is an effective instructional tool. No evidence. That's what Shanahan wrote, and he's one of the authors of the people in the National Reading Panel project. It's clear. Matter of fact, it's another one of those links that's in the document people can check out. But it's an issue writ large. So you can have a curriculum that's aligned to the science, but if people are still doing this, it's not going to work. 3Qing, same thing. Skippy the Frog, Eagle Eye, Fish Lips, all that type of stuff. Like, we have to be willing to step back and say, let's reclaim our profession and let's look at things critically and see where we can still grow.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Okay, and so we have a question here. For families who are struggling with other economic needs outside of just their child or their children's educational needs, and who too struggle, like the parents themselves struggle with literacy,
Yeah.
how can they become literacy advocates for their children, especially at a school site level?
That's a good question. How much political, cultural, economic capital do you need to have to be a factor? So San Francisco prides itself on being a very inclusive town, always has. Well, that matters. That shows up in how we treat people who don't have a lot of resources. We can't call ourselves inclusive and then big time people and be like, oh, you're not talking the right talk. You don't have your acronyms right. You drive this car, you're walking, or you don't speak English, or whatever it is. We can't big time them and other them and then claim to be this bastion of progressiveness. Those two things don't line up. So what I would tell parents, two things. One, you need a coalition. Don't go by yourself, go together. Join an organization, join the PTA, join the NAACP, join whatever local organizations are willing to stand up for your children. That includes, your temple, mosque, synagogue, all these religious institutions. It includes your Boys and Girls Club. It includes whoever. It includes PAL, the Police Athletic League. I don't know, whoever is willing to stand up for your kids. Consider partnering with them, because school systems are not, especially board members, but systems in general, they're really not used to advocacy coming from a coalition. They're used to it coming group by group. Oh, here come the bilingual parents. They're going to advocate for multilingual learners and And, you know, they want to, you know, here come the Black parents. They want this. Here come the dyslexic parents. They want that. Here come the white man. They're used to that. Like that. That's, you know, that's what we do. It's a whole.
Kareem, one sec. I think we lost your audio. Sorry, guys. I didn't know if it was just me or everyone.
Yeah, I think I fixed it. Can you hear me now?
Sorry. Yes, if
Sorry
you
about
could
that. I
just go
pressed the
back a
wrong
little
button.
bit.
I pressed the wrong button. Well, I was just going to say that regardless of your social economic status, how much money you have in the bank, you got a right. You're a human being to advocate for your child. Just go together if you can. Go and join. So the question is, can we work together? Can people from different backgrounds work together for a common goal? That's the question. And I really don't have an answer to that. I don't know. Can conservatives and Democrats and liberals work together on something? I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's a gut check. How important are your kids to you? What are your priorities? And maybe you have to work together on some things and you don't work together on anything else. Think about it, right? So I would just say for parents who don't have a lot of money and social capital, join an organization, go in coalition, and also know that you have the right to advocate for your child. I don't care how much money you do or don't have. You have the right to go attend meetings, to speak at board meetings. You have an absolute right. And so don't, it's tough. I know it's tough, but you can do it. You have just as much right as anyone else to go in there and speak your mind and advocate for your child. And in fact, I would say you have a duty to do so. But go together, get a coalition and go together. That mitigates most of the issue right there.
Maybe kind of like the SF Parents Coalition. But moving on here. So
Wait. No, Don, no, don't move on. Don't move on. No, that's real. So can you talk a little bit about SF Parents Coalition and who's welcome? Who, you know, is anybody not welcome? And what do you focus on? Is literacy one of your priorities? Like that, like that's the main thing. People need to know where they can go and who they can join with so they can actually advocate on behalf of their kids. Can you say a little bit about it?
yeah, for sure. So, first off the bat, literacy is definitely one of our priorities this year. Planning this event is kind of like the first step in kicking off the conversation, that we want to just make sure that families are informed and then give them the tools to advocate for their students in their classroom and kind of like you said, build up that culture at their school site and generally across the district. And we are a coalition of parents from across the city. No one is not allowed to come to our meetings or be a part of us. As long as you're here for the kids and passionate about all kids' education and that having some equity and excellence in their education, then you're part of the parent coalition. And yes, thanks for the chat. We have our SF Kids Can't Wait campaign. And we're still advocating for a lot of those asks.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And
If I'm a parent, I want to get involved, where do I go? Who do I talk to? What's the email address? How do I do it?
you can talk to me. The main email to go to general would be hello@sfparents.org.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Just looking here. So yeah, talking specifically about curriculum.
Giovanna, while you pull that question up, can I add one more thing about SF Parent Coalition? So we have been engaged in this work for about as long as the organization has been around. Many of our most active parents have been pushing for the district to adopt research-based curriculum for a long time. And so it's something that has been critical to the work that we have been doing and we will continue to do.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jen.
back to you.
Yeah. Okay, so with this new curriculum that is being implemented in the fall, what do we know about it, like specifically about not like the rollout, but the curriculum itself, and what it has to offer our students? This is for
You want
you.
me to answer?
Sorry,
Who do you want to answer?
for Jenny, for Jenny.
What do we know about the curriculum?
Mhm.
I mean, I would love to hear Kareem's take since I know he's gotten to know various curricula in his work across the country. So, you know, I think the things that we know about the programs that were selected is one, they have been rated green on edreports.org, which is a nonprofit that's curriculum for whether it is aligned to the Common Core state standards, the standards that are in use in California and in other states that define what kids should be learning in each grade. And that also look for research-based practices. And we know that they are all informed by this body of research that we've referenced. As Kareem has mentioned, we know that no curriculum is perfect. And you know, some of the challenges that teachers may face is that there's a lot of materials that they'll need to sift through. And so that's why you know, Kareem has been talking about and us as parents has talked about and will continue to talk about how important it is for teachers to receive support in getting to know their curriculum before it rolls out, as well as throughout the year, because it's not just sort of a one and done thing. It takes time to get to know a curriculum and learn how to use it effectively. Another thing that we know is Into Reading, the K-5 curriculum, was selected in part because it has strong supports for multilingual learners. It has an English language arts version and a Spanish language arts. So both English and Spanish language arts teachers will be using the same curriculum. And it also has, in the English version, English language development supports, which are really important for students who are learning English for the first time in school. Kareem, anything that you would add about the curricula that the district chose?
Yeah. You have a few things. I didn't want to go here, but you bringing me in. The main thing is it's possible to work with it. You can work with it. You know, you mentioned it's green on EdReports. EdReports is a website that really looks at curriculum, and they've been around for a few years now, and they rate them red, yellow, green, right? Do they follow the standards? But what they don't do is they don't, in any way, they don't look at student achievement results at all. Most people don't know that. They think green means good, right? Green means, yay, we love it. Green means go. Okay, but as a parent, I actually like the first question I have is, does it work? That's actually my first, second, and third. Does it work? Secondly, is it usable? And EdReports will look at usability if it passes two other things. Then it gets to usability. And so, you know, you have to, when you're making these decisions, you really have to be very clear on what your North Star is. Very clear. I'm all for alignment to standards. I'm all for all the things you mentioned. That's all wonderful. Does it work? And can the teachers use it? Like if you just so anyway, I have thoughts about it. But having said that, interreading can work if some other things are in place. It can absolutely work, and that's really the bottom line. The question is SFUSD going to create the conditions for success, and are the teachers going to lead it? Are the teachers going to lead it? So when things are going to get cut, and listen, things are going to get cut. There are $130 million in the hole, $1 million in the hole. Something's going to get cut. It can't be professional learning for teachers. That's got to be, you know, it can't be. We can't skip on coaching and support and all the things that we know are necessary to make this kind of initiative go.
Great. And we have time for one final question here. So, with the end goal being, you know, making sure that all of our kids can read. So, what is one thing that we, as a community, can push on the district and the school board to make sure that teachers are leading the process and can, you know, get all the professional development they need, regardless of their contract with the district.
I feel like they just answered their own question. Was that a question? They just answered it. Like, got to push on the district to make sure teachers get what they need. That's the answer to the question right there.
Right.
And I would say, but that last part, regardless of their contract, nah, man, nah. So what you can do, you can offer people an extended contract. That's one thing that we do in education. So basically, we'll say, hey, would you want to work some overtime? We'll give you this amount of money. It's usually not that much, frankly, but you know, that's one thing you can do. Maybe that works for some folks, but I would urge you all, urge the district and any advocate within the district, you want to make it, you want to make the things that are critical to success, you want to make them structural. So it's, you know, hope isn't a strategy. We got to have hope. That can't be the plan. Oh, I hope this teacher accepts this opportunity for professional development. I hope this principal goes off and learns this new thing. I hope this coach, man, that's, you know, it is what it is. Hope is great. But I would say we want to make structural shifts that incorporate the things that we know drive student achievement and student growth. You know, planning time matters, making sure the curriculum aligns to planning time matters, making sure the supports are there. Now, while all this, here's another thing, while all this stuff is going on, this season of learning is happening, what about the kids? Because, you know, kids only have first grade like one time, ideally. And so there are some districts. I just came back from a school in Hayward yesterday, and they're doing this program called Ignite, which is phenomenal. The virtual one-on-one tutoring, 15 minutes a day, and again, great results. And it's rooted in a curriculum that has the highest the best results. They have studies, federal studies, state studies, striving readers reports about it working. So they took a component of that and they built up this virtual tutoring model. So you have the same tutor every day, 15 minutes, and they teach you it wherever you are to help you get to where you need to be, at least for the foundational skills. That's the part of the rope that we're focusing on. And it's working, and it's been working around the country. So it's a safety net. So what's SUFD's safety net? While folks are figuring this out, you can't just say, go learn, go figure out, at the same time, it's all on you to get it right the first day. There should be some sort of a safety net. Now I understand the football team is important. I understand the basketball team is important. I understand there's a lot of other things that are important. I understand. But safety and reading. And so when they go in that boardroom, they start getting the pen and scissors ready to cut, safety and reading. You got to emphasize that. We got to have certain things as a community. You have a right to demand that. And it may not be a program like the Ignite Reading program, maybe something else, but something to support the teachers while they're learning what they need to learn in this transition period to use this curriculum to support the kids. And it's not all about the curriculum. That curriculum's not perfect. So they're going to have to also give a little more. It's not just, you can't just follow the script on that one. You're going to have to really dig into professional learning. And so they're going to need some support. They're going to need some support.
Mhm. Well, that's all the time we have for questions today, but appreciate you guys answering all of those.
I just wanted to close by saying thank you so much to Kareem for this inspiring and informative conversation. We know you're in high demand. Obviously, you're traveling the country as we speak. So we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to our community.
Well, let me just say this: the work that I'm doing with Fulcrum, I started out in San Francisco. Megan Potente from Decoding Dyslexia, she sent me over to KPOO. I don't know if y'all know about KPOO. It's like the People Station, a little small. Check it out, KPOO. And we interviewed and talked about literacy and how the NAACP in Oakland was really focusing on, you know, literacy and getting kids to read. And that really is what kind of launched our national effort. It's grown and grown and grown. So anytime I can help support San Francisco, I feel like I'm paying it forward, you know, based on the fact that the folks in San Francisco have been supportive with our work at Fulcrum, and I'm really grateful.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Giovanna, I'll hand it over to you to close out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much to you both for taking the time to join us tonight and answer our most pressing questions on literacy in the district. And thank you to all of you for joining us tonight and listening in. And we look forward to working with all of you to support SFUSD's efforts to improve reading and writing outcomes across all of our schools. If you're looking for ways to get involved to support the work, we have some additional ideas for you. So the first is to have conversations with your teacher, the teachers of your students, for data regarding your kids' performance in reading. We have a literacy guide that includes a list of reading assessments that SFUSD students take in each grade, and that can kind of help lead the conversation, not just like, is my kid good at reading or not? Kind of gives you those benchmarks that you can pay close attention to. The next option is to attend the school site council meetings at your child's school. That's where information about the literacy curriculum rollout at that specific school and student achievement data is going to be brought. And you can ask some of the similar questions we heard tonight about what the school is doing to support teachers during this transition to a new curriculum. And the last thing is to attend the Board of Education workshop meetings to make sure the district is sharing updates on its progress towards implementing the curriculum, improving instruction, and ultimately improving student outcomes. So there's going to be specific workshop meetings on monitoring the goals the district has set on reading, but also there's nothing stopping any of us from going to any Board of Education meeting on any time, regardless of the topic, and just sharing those concerns and making sure that people know this is something that we're paying close attention to. So yeah, and keep your eyes peeled for newsletters and actions from SF parents and on ways that, like our next wave of programming and other ways we can support our schools and teachers. And thank you to everyone for attending. This event was recorded and it's going to be on YouTube very soon. And as we finish up the school year, congrats to all the parents, all the teachers, administrators on an amazing school year. And we're so excited for the summer, but also for the next school year. So thank you all for being here tonight. Hope it was a great one. If you guys have any other questions about something we discussed tonight, please send it our way, hello@sfparents.org, and we'll make sure to get back to you. Great. And you have a little bit time back in your day. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kareem.